Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Taking Control of Your Diabetes podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Jeremy Pettus, joined as always by my good friend and colleague,
Dr. Steve Edelman.
And if you are just tuning in, Steve and I are both endocrinologists. We've both been living with type 1 diabetes since we were the age of 15. Steve just about 20 years longer than me.
25.
And we both work at the University of California, San Diego. We do research, we see patients. And Steve founded TCOID almost exactly 30 years ago now to educate, empower people living with diabetes to take control of their diabetes. So, Steve, we've got a really special guest today. So you all may know him as the insider on all things football. We have Adam Schefter here with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you, Adam. And today, we're not going to talk about who's the MVP, who scored a touchdown, who they trading, why the heck did the Chargers leave San Diego. We're going to talk about something a lot more personal, and that's something that many of our listeners can relate to. That's type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, so Adam, say hi and just start, if you don't mind, by telling us what is your connection with type 1 diabetes?
Well, I appreciate having me. Thank you very much. And yes, my wife, Shari, lives with type 1 diabetes. She was diagnosed as an adult about a year after she lost her husband, Joseph, on 9/11. Obviously, it was a very trying situation for everybody, and she had to learn to adjust to living as a type 1 diabetic and as a widow and as a single mother. But watching how she has managed this disease, it changed the way that I look at health, at planning, at everything. Type 1 diabetes, as both of you know, as type 1 diabetics, doesn't take any days off. It's always there. It's a part of your life at all times. It's 24/7. It's really demanding and difficult and trying for you all that live with it and for the people in your lives. For me, it's been a reminder of just how strong my wife is as the MVP of our family. She's the one that we count on to look after our 2 kids, our 4 dogs, our house. She does all that. When she's struggling, that's not easy. So obviously it got me thinking, what would have been different if potentially she might have known earlier?
Yeah, well, gosh, what a powerful story.
Yeah.
And, going through all that, she's coming down with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
And yeah, we use the term type 3, which is somebody that, I think, Steve, you get credit for coining this phrase, doesn't have diabetes himself, but they care or love for somebody that does. So yes, you're absolutely a type 3. And the gig of a type 3, isn't an easy one. I think as, Steve and I living with type 1, you expect this person to know exactly what you're thinking, get involved like when you want them to and not when you don't. And that can be a really different, like a difficult conversation. In fact, we've done this thing called the newlywed game a couple times where we've gotten actually like Steve's girlfriend was on, and we had a couple other
my ex-wife too,
a couple partners, and we would ask them questions like, what's my favorite thing to eat when I'm low, and they would see if their answers match that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, and maybe you can comment on this too, Adam, is that it's different strokes for different folks. There's, some couples, they want their spouse counting every carb and, carrying their insulin around for them. And there's others that, really like a hands-off approach. So how have you and your wife kind of dealt with that? What's that been like from when you met her to now? How has that evolved?
Well, my wife is a very strong, fierce, independent woman. And so nobody is going to tell her what to do. And they're certainly not going to tell her what to do when her sugars are going high or low. So, like I said, she knows her body better than her own endocrinologist. And she knows what she needs. And I obviously have been with her long enough now that I understand what's going on when she's not feeling well, when she needs to go lay down. And it seems to be, a fairly regular occurrence. And I feel bad for her that she can't always operate at full strength, but this is her life, and she's doing a brave, tremendous job battling it, taking it on every day. It's not easy, as you guys know better than me. But she is very strong, very tough, very remarkable in those ways. And my job is to kind of look after her.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like both of you have gotten educated on diabetes. And I think we've always said, education is the key to taking control of your diabetes. And you're someone in your profession you love to find out things early. You want to be the first one to make these announcements, and as an insider in football. And how do you think that would have helped Shari if she knew she was coming
Shari.
down with
Shari.
What did I say, Shari?
Mm-hmm.
Shari. Yeah.
Sure.
That's okay.
Well, I have a California accent.
That's
Shari.
okay. You know, a lot of people. it seems like it's like an East Coast New York kind of. It's a very kind of East Coast kind of Shari.
Well,
So-
sorry about that. Well, tell us what life would have been like, perhaps, if she would have known she was coming down with type 1 diabetes.
Well, and it's part of the reason that I've partnered with Sanofi, because type 1 can't be prevented, but it can be detected early. And it's one of the things that I've done is I've tried to encourage people to go talk with their doctors about being screened early. Like, the more information you have earlier, the better off you are. I make my living off information. And Shari kind of got blindsided. A year later, like, boom, full onset type 1 diabetic. She didn't have advance warning. She wasn't screened in advance. And I think the transition that you make when you go from being married to being widowed to having type 1 to raising a son on your own while you're dealing with your type 1, that's a lot for anybody. That's extreme. I got it. But the point of it is just to get ahead of it and to get that information. It's not just valuable information, it's potentially life-changing. And I want more families to know that it's out there, that there's a blood test that can detect type 1 early so that they can be informed and get out in front of it and be prepared in the event that they happen to be diagnosed with type 1.
Yeah. And, we'll talk about how to get screened and what these, tests are. But, for a little background for our listeners, when Steve and I were diagnosed, and I'm sure your wife too, it seems like it comes out of nowhere.
Right.
Like it hits you like a ton of bricks. I was a
Gut punch.
normal 15-year-old kid running around doing 15-year-old kid stuff. And then as far as I was concerned, overnight, I got really sick. I was in the hospital on DKA, and boom, my life was changed forever.
And our families' lives were changed forever, too. And you know what? The other thing is, no one in our family has diabetes.
Wow.
And I couldn't even spell it being 15 years old.
You
back
still
then.
can't. We've been over this.
You mentioned DKA, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a story I've told before, and I'll tell it now because I think it feeds into the idea and the importance of early screening and giving families a chance to stay ahead of things. Finding out in the early stages so you can start preparing.
Yeah.
And my wife, at one point in time, I remember walking to the bathroom in our bedroom, and she was sprawled out on the floor. And I'm like, what's the matter? She said, I don't feel well. I'm nauseous. Now, I've seen her nauseous, but I've never seen her sprawled out on the floor. I'm like, are you okay? And I called her endocrinologist. They're like, I think it's time to get to the hospital. I'm like, I'm taking you to the hospital. She's like, you're not going to the hospital. And this might be the one time in my 18 plus years of marriage that I can remember. I told my wife, I don't care what you're telling me. I'm overruling you. We're doing what I want right now. And I took her to the hospital, and it turned out that she was in DKA.
Yeah.
And if she hadn't gone to the hospital, then who knows what could have happened. As you know, anything could happen, right? Yeah. There are potentially tragic circumstances that could follow that. Thank God she did go. Doctors took care of her. But DKA could happen to anybody that essentially isn't familiar with type 1. Like that, so that there are so many scary elements, which is, again, why I come back to the screening part, giving yourself a chance to get that information, be prepared, be knowledgeable.
And like we were saying, Steve and I, we went into DKA when we were 15, but we can tell when people are developing type 1 diabetes. We now can screen for it with these antibody tests that you can get done through pretty simple ways, which we'll go over. And these are present in the blood years before people typically develop DKA or type 1 diabetes. So I tell people that I probably had these antibodies circulating when I was 10 or 11 or 12. And, wouldn't it have been nice to know that I was, in the throes of developing type 1 diabetes. to prevent DKA. One, because that's a bad, nasty condition. You can get really sick. And two, just to start educating yourself, preparing yourself for these things so it doesn't come out of, nowhere, prepares you and the family for it.
Yeah, and even people who get screened, if they follow them later in life, and if they do come down with type 1, it's such an easier landing because they've been educated on the initial symptoms.
Right.
They know they've got an endocrinologist possibly lined up. They've already started to make positive lifestyle changes. So, and the other thing is most people who come down with type 1, just like Jeremy and I and your wife, we had no family history. And it turns out that most people that come down with type 1 do not have a family history, and and you can get it at any age. So it really affects the entire population, even though right now we're putting a lot of effort in screening first-degree relatives of people with type 1. But that's just the low-hanging fruit. That's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, like if you have a child or a sibling with type 1, you could be at risk too, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's why it's important for people to talk to their doctor and ask about screening. And autoantibody screening can spot type 1 diabetes early and before possible life-threatening complications and the need for insulin. You want to give yourself more time to prepare. That's the win in my mind.
You want to go over the 3 stages, Jeremy, just for listeners?
Real quick, so we now have 3 stages of type 1 diabetes, and get this, they're called stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And stage 1 is as soon as you have 2 or more of these antibodies that are positive in your bloodstream, your risk of going on to developing type 1 diabetes, needing insulin, is 100%. So as soon as those antibodies are there, the kind of the damage is being done, essentially. Stage 1, you've got the antibodies that are there, but your blood sugars are still normal. Stage 2, you've got the antibodies, but now your blood sugars are slightly abnormal. You don't need insulin or anything like that yet, but you're getting kind of closer to the tipping point, which is then stage 3, when it's kind of quote unquote full-blown type 1 diabetes. You need insulin, you might have gone into DKA, whatever that is. So the stories that Steve and I have told, and your experience, or your wife's experience, Sherry's experience, we didn't know about it until stage 3. We kind of skipped the first 2, but they definitely happened. We just didn't know about it because we didn't check the antibodies, but we can do that now. So let's talk a little bit about how to do that. And Adam, do you want to talk about that or kick that off, or?
Again, I think most people have heard of type 2, but they don't really know what type 1 is. And they don't know there's nothing you can do to prevent it. But there's so much more you can do to prepare. The test won't stop type 1 diabetes, but it could spot it early, and not in an emergency situation like we're talking about with DKA. You get ahead of it before any of that can come up. And so that's why, again, anybody listening today, if they have any type of T1D in their family, we'd urge them to please talk to their doctor. They could go to the site, screen4type1.com, screen4type1.com. Start the conversation with your doctor, and obviously it's going to make a huge difference, or potentially can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, let me ask you a question, and to Jeremy as well. Okay, I have a colleague that's in the pharmaceutical area. Mm-hmm. He has type 1. Mm-hmm. And his wife is scared to death to test their kids. Right. And what do you say to people like that?
I listen. My 2 cents is it. You could turn a blind eye towards it, or you can do something responsible and go talk to your doctor and let your doctor give the information. If first of all, you might find out that everything's okay, and then there's no reason to be scared. Or you find out that there is an issue, and then you become educated and informed about it and take the proper steps so that there are no surprises, and you can gain the valuable information that, again, could be potentially life-saving. So I understand the fears. There are a lot of people don't want to go to doctors to talk to them about certain things. I've had various tests in recent years where doctor, I want you to get this test, I want you to get that test, I could ignore that stuff, but I've been proactive. That's me. I want the information. I make my living with information. So I've done that. And so to me, there's no reason not to have yourself, your children, your loved ones screened. Just talk to the doctor about it. It's pretty simple. Like, if that's the simplest thing to do to me.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's a lot easier for me, Steve. I've told my brother, sister, go get screened, figure it out.
Yeah.
When it comes to your kids, like that was a tougher one for me because I do think living with type 1, some people can have some guilt if my kid tests positive, that I gave it to them. And plus, we really know firsthand what it's like to live with the disease. You just don't want it so bad that some people do put their head in the sand. So it is a personal choice. And I really did take a while to get my kids screened, as you know, Steve, and eventually did. And I will tell you, I've never been more nervous for a result, in my life.
Yeah. Even the syphilis test.
Yeah. But thankfully came back, negative. And that's
syphilis or type 1?
Well, the syphilis is still pending. But fingers crossed. We'll let you know.
The titer was so high they had to send it out to different labs.
Exactly.
But yes, because you just don't want your kids to go through that. But, this website that you mentioned, Adam, screenfortype1.com, it is a good one because it mentions a couple different ways that you can do the test. And one is go to your doctor. Another is that you can actually, fill out this form. They'll send you a kit at home. And you can poke your finger, just like doing a blood sugar test, and put the blood drops on a little card, send it back in the mail, so you don't have to go anywhere, and they can give you the results. So that's something like pretty easy, and this is a good tool that you can just give your family members this website and say, hey, just get this done. It's a really good resource to have.
I was going to say, I know parents who wanted to check their kids. So they took the little finger sticker device, which hopefully we don't use too much anymore now that we have CGM. And while the kid is sleeping, they prick the toe and they get a couple drops of blood and the kid never even knows. And so, it's quite easy. Now I really appreciate the fact that you respect that we're doctors and you keep saying, go talk to your doctor. But I hate to say this, but many doctors have no clue on what we're talking about. So I think there are, read about it online, go to the website, speak to an endocrinologist that is diabetes savvy. But I would say most primary care doctors do not know much about this. And it's not because they're dumb or they don't care. They just have too much stuff to know. So I think, getting educated is key. And I think it's more than
so go talk to an endocrinologist about it then.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I said, who's diabetes savvy? I had to qualify that.
And so on that note, Adam, you have such a huge platform. What's been your experience, being kind of a champion for this cause? What kind of feedback do you get or acceptance or roadblocks? Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's kind of cool because, again, ever since partnering with Sanofi and trying to get out the message of urging people to screen and to get educated and going to screenfortype1.com, like all these things, every time I wind up posting on my Instagram, I love the support that I get from people who have some sort of connection to type 1. There's a couple we're having dinner with tonight after I get done taping this podcast. Their son was diagnosed as a little boy with type 1. They cheer it on. Obviously, there are so many people you come into contact with in life who have some sort of connection to type 1. And like I said to you before, most people have heard of type 2. They don't know really what type 1 diabetes is. They don't know that there's nothing that you can do to prevent it. But again, that comes back to urging people to screen for it, knowing that the test won't stop it, but it can spot it early. And in an emergency situation, give you more time to prepare. So, again, I just feel like I've had the privilege and the honor of representing the type 1 community in the small capacity that I do, being married to a type 1 diabetic, and hopefully offering some encouragement to people to go to screenfortype1.com to talk with, I was saying doctors, you're telling me diabetic savvy endocrinologists.
Yes.
Whichever, whoever you feel comfortable with. Talk to your doctors, get more information. Usually, I know you're refuting me some, but usually I would think a doctor is the best source of health information here. And they can answer questions that you have or that would be appropriate for you.
Well, I just, something you said stuck out. I mean, the type 1 community, what an awesome community. And really, we are lucky to be part of it. Super supportive.
It's very motivating. It's very inspiring.
And if you're just going for a walk and you see somebody in the park with a pump or a CGM on, you have this kind of instant bond connection to them. And and I would also say a very altruistic community that we're urging people to get screened, not because it's too late for Steve and I. Cat's out of the bag. We have type 1 diabetes, but gosh, we want to help the next kind of generation to know about this and hopefully one day prevent it entirely.
Yeah.
Like I said, again, I feel like my job always is to be out front on information in the NFL. So this is a different version of that in the type 1 community, to get people to be out front on information about their own personal health, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that it's a similar concept. So, I mean, that's the idea of it. We don't want anybody to be blindsided by this. We want them to be informed about this. We want them to find out in the early stages so they can start preparing. So, whether it's getting follow-ups or knowing what symptoms to watch for, just having the extra time to plan, I think, is important.
Well, I just want to say thanks for your passion on this, Adam. It's one thing to advocate for a disease that you have. It's another that, somebody that's very close, near and dear to you, that you've taken this on as your own kind of personal mission is, really to be applauded. And to bring awareness to something that really, as Steve said, has a real lack of awareness. And so things like this, doing more podcasts, more posting, whatever it is to let people be aware there's a test now. You can go online, you can get it sent to your house, you can get it done. Really right now, to be specific, we're focusing on people that do have a relative with type 1 diabetes or any other autoimmune disease. And there's a long list of those: thyroid problems, celiac disease, adrenal problems. So that's where we're starting, but I hope one day eventually we'll get to kind of a public health initiative where it's everybody at a certain age gets screened, or it really gets kind of put into kind of our regular health visits, rather than relying on people like yourself to champion this and just kind of do this semi-grassroots movement. But it is getting there, and it's evolving.
Yeah, and we didn't really spend too much time on this, and we don't plan to, but besides just being prepared, let's say if you test positive, if you have 2 or more autoantibodies, there's lots of good clinical studies going on there now. We have a therapy that is also available. So it's more than just being prepared. It's going one step beyond that. And I know you always mention the JDRF, or the Breakthrough T1D site that lists all of the studies depending on where you live. And there's one of Jeremy's area of expertise is looking at all the therapies in this early stage that could prevent or prolong the honeymoon period, as we call it.
Yeah. So Adam, anything that you want to say closing out that you want our listeners to know? We got their kind of call to action to screen themselves or their family members.
Yeah. Again, you're talking about, the job that I've been able to do to spread the message. And again, I consider it an honor to be engaged by Sanofi, to be able to do this, to be able to encourage people to go to screen4type1.com to get more information. Like, I just want people to have the opportunity to be informed, to go talk to their doctors, to get the information early. And so that's what's important to me. And if it helps people, then that makes me feel good. And that's really one of the main reasons we're doing this.
Well, it's been a pleasure. We really appreciate you taking the time and again, taking this cause on. And just want to say thank you again. Thanks to all of our listeners. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, all those kind of fun things. And just one last sincere thank you to you, Adam. Great, nice meeting you. Great chatting with you. And hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure as well. And please say hello to your lovely wife from us, and and tell her to order any frickin' dessert she wants, because she has insulin.
Yeah, she does. Well, she does do what she wants. I mean, she's
you made that clear.
And so if she wants dessert tonight when we got to dinner, I think she will do that. But Dr. Pettus and Dr. Edelman, I really appreciate you having me on today. It was an honor to be with you again. Much respect to you for fighting the disease that you do. Much respect to everybody out there, all the type 1 warriors who we know are listening today, and they are warriors. If you're fighting that disease, you are a warrior, and you should be very proud of yourself for taking this on. And again, go to screen4type1.com for more information for all those people who would like to be screened.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.